I don't think it's been spoken about enough. The job that Andrea Berta has done at Arsenal. The appointment itself was exciting. I was excited. It was the one I wanted. And the reason I wanted him at Arsenal was because he's got experience working alongside Diego Simeone, where he's been successful, but also not just on the pitch have they been successful, with his player sales and the signings he made at that club. They were unbelievable. I'm talking about the Rodri signing. I'm talking about the shrewd business of players like Torres, Suarez, Villa. We're talking about players like Diogo Jota, RIP. We're talking about the likes of Cunha, DePaul, Vasalco, the list goes on. Andrea Berta was the appointment that I wanted. And I wanted him ahead of Scuro. I wanted him ahead of Robert Alabi. I wanted him ahead of the likes of Dan Ashworth, who was mentioned. And although names would be thrown as other candidates that people were looking at alongside or potentially excited about, Andrea Berta was always my number one. But even I've been taken aback at how good he has been and how excited I have been this summer in comparison to other summers. And I'll tell you why. One thing that might be seen as a bit of a negative is in with the new, out with the old. And I personally believe that it has probably made Edu stand out like a sore thumb and not in a good light. Now, I love Edu, the player. I thought he was a brilliant, brilliant footballer for Arsenal, an invincible and probably an underrated player for Arsenal. In terms of what he did with signings, I liked the business that he did in certain aspects of players. I thought Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard, Ben White all deserve a mention. Gabriel, Thomas Partey. But then I have to look at what was he doing in certain transfer windows? Because Andrea Berta has come in and done a wonderful job. In fact, it's phenomenal so far. What I have seen, you can't look at Andrea Berta and go, I liked this and this, but I don't know what you're thinking doing this. I haven't done that yet. And I was really surprised when I saw the amount of players coming in, the contract renewals, and the players leaving. And they're the three big things that I think he was going to be looked at by fans. First of all, they were going to look at who you're bringing in. Second of all, they're going to be looking at how are you going to get rid of some of this deadwood. And thirdly, you're going to be looking at how do you tie some of these big players, key figures at Arsenal down to long-term contracts. And I look at the first few months and it's been tick, tick, tick. On top of that, he's not just done 1, 2, and 3. He's gone to 4 now because we're looking at players that we didn't even think about getting tied down to long-term contracts now being linked with long-term contracts at Arsenal. We're also being linked with players towards January and the following summer. So this guy isn't on the jet ski and the barbecue like Edu was. This guy's thinking my job ain't done. As much as I can relax and let the manager do the work on the field, I'm going to make sure I'm helping every single part and minute and second of the day by going and looking ahead and planning ahead. And that's the rumor now that we're looking at being linked with players. Now, look, some of these players might be loose. They might not be as, clear cut as perhaps it's being reported, but certainly the names that we're being linked with have definitely raised some eyebrows in an exciting way. So let's look at the actual job that Andrea Berta has done so far. Forget the few weeks of settling in and understanding what the club's about and reading up on the history and what we want to achieve and all that. He did all that. He got a little bit of stick. And if I'm honest, I was probably one of them to start with. And the reason it was not because I didn't think he was going to do well. It was because, come on, mate, hurry up. We need some players. And there was that kind of few weeks, weren't there, where it was like, Arsenal haven't got an attacker yet. Arsenal were looking at players, but not really getting much over the line. Arsenal were looking at players in positions I don't think we really need at the moment. And I can understand where people's frustrations were. And I was one of them. But then it went bang. And we look at the business that he's done. Now, I'm going to start with Martin Zubimendi because I think Martin Zubimendi was probably a player that was done prior to the arrival of Andrea Berta. But you've got to give him some credit in relation to what he did to get the deal across the line. He was one of the sought-after central defensive midfielders that we knew was available and on the market. And when you look at Martin Zubimendi's attributes, so far in an Arsenal shirt, I'm not blown away. But at the same time, you can see he's clearly a good player. And he's one that Mikel Arteta wanted in that 6. He's definitely contributed, and his attributes, I think, will suit the Premier League. Sometimes I look at the physical side of the game and think maybe it doesn't suit him. However, there's no doubt that he's got unbelievable technical ability, passing, and can shoot. So that is a good signing, and one that you definitely have to give a little bit of praise towards Andrea Berta. But all fair, you have to also say big up to the previous regime and Mikel Arteta, because that is a player they clearly identified long before Andrea Berta's arrival. Then we go to our absolute excitement. And these players that I'm about to say were the ones that probably got us out of our seat more with excitement. The first one, of course, is Eberechi Eza. I think when you look at what Eza's about, it's flair, his expression of talent. He's got the pace, the power, the drive on the ball. He's definitely going to help Arsenal from low blocks. And I think the way that Andrea Berta got Eza will always be remembered and will go down as one of the funniest, most dramatic bits of business that we've done in a summer transfer window, taking him off of the cloths and the grips of Spurs. 27 years old, 68 million pounds, a player that I believe is going to be an excellent signing for Arsenal. That is one that we have to say hats off to Andrea Berta. Then we move to our striker, 27-year-old from Sporting Lisbon, 65 million pounds, Victor Gyökeres, the guy that picked up the Ballon d'Or for the most goals scored in Europe across the season, 100 goals in 2 seasons. Andrea Berta is a massive, key, pivotal figure into this signing. And we know why, because Arsenal were looking at Benjamin Sesko. And it was clear that Arteta wanted him in terms of his profile and what he believed was what the number 9 he was looking for at Arsenal. But Andrea Berta said, look, for cheaper, we can get the ready-made, better player. And although people are giving him some stick in the first 6-7 games, I'm not. He's got goals for us. It's not like he's still waiting. But for me, Victor Gyökeres was definitely, whether you love him now or hate him now, definitely one of the signings that we looked at to be exciting. And I do believe that Andrea Berta is a massive, massive key part of that. So those are the 2 big signings that we were like, wow. Probably the 3, actually, with Zubimendi. They were the ones that we could say could probably raise the ceiling a little bit. Then we look at Noni Madueke. Now, I don't know anybody that was buzzing for this signing. £52 million from Chelsea, 23 years old, still a little bit unproven. Premier League proven in terms of a squad player, but I'm not so sure that he walks into anyone's first 11 in the top 4. However, he has had a very interesting and exciting start at Arsenal, albeit he is now on the injury table. I've been very impressed with his start at Arsenal. And Andrea Berta and Mikel Arteta can both take some praise in that and can both be rewarded and take the plaudits for that without a doubt. Noni Madueke's had a good start. I hope it continues. It's a shame he's got injured, but we now have cover for Bukayo Saka. So we've got our striker, we've got our CDM, we've got our attacking midfielder, and we've now got our winger. There's still more to do. Andrea Berta isn't even halfway yet. He's still got a lot to do in his eyes. And fans were really surprised. I said there'd be about 4 or 5 signings this summer. I expected that. I expected it to be in a different caliber to Calafiori, Marino, and Sterling and Neto and these type of players. But I thought we'd get 4 or 5 players that were better quality than that, but probably no more than that. But we were definitely pleasantly surprised by the fact that we added to Madueke, Eza, Gyökeres, and Zubimendi with, first of all, Christian Mosquera. Now, I didn't know much about him, but I tell you what I said as soon as we signed Christian Mosquera. I'm excited and I'm intrigued. This will be an interesting signing. The reason I said that was not because I knew much about him. He was at Valencia. I think we've all can probably say that we've watched a handful of their games. But why I was interested in this signing is because this reminds me of one of the gems that he plucked out from La Liga for Atletico Madrid. And already he looks an exciting player. He looks a signing that could have unbelievable potential at the age of 21, calm and composed on the ball. I see the mistake against Newcastle, but for me, it's the only one that he's done so far. He was calm and composed against games against Liverpool. He's played tough opposition. He's played against teams that maybe he didn't even dream of a couple of years ago. And I think he's done well. So this signing excites me. It's intriguing, interesting, and it's definitely thanks to Andrea Berta, who clearly spotted him talent-wise over in the Liga playing for Valencia. Then we come to Christian Norgard, and I think Mikel Arteta probably knew a little bit about him. Berta has to get the deals across the line, but at the same time, a 31-year-old who's Premier League proven, a leader for Brentford, somebody who did a really good job and someone that you can rely upon in terms of a squad player. Nothing to get excited about, but he's definitely replaced the likes of a Jorginho or El Neni in this side for me. Then you come next to Kepa. Now, Kepa was one that I must admit did raise a few eyebrows when we signed him. It was easy. It was quickly done. It wasn't a goalkeeper signing that I got excited about. It's one where the jury's still out for me. I still think he's got a mistake in him, but he did have a good season for Bournemouth last time. He is a goalkeeper that once Chelsea paid £75 million for. And at the age of 30 now, he is an experienced goalkeeper that you can rely upon as a number two. Does it excite me? Absolutely not. But I don't mind that because it's a backup goalkeeper. And then we come to the signing that probably surprised me the most, Nkapie. Do I know much about him? No. He's 23 years old. We know that he is a player that Xabi Alonso liked at Leverkusen. Versatile, centre-back and left-back. Known to be a bit of a monster. Known to be, at times, very rough. Hopefully not rash like a Romero, but certainly a rough, hard-hitting defender. And he was the 8th signing. Can you believe we've signed 8 players at Arsenal just in one window? That for me is phenomenal. Unbelievable. I don't remember the last time it happened. And if it did, it was probably 3 or 4 players we didn't really know much about because they were so young that were joining. All of these players have walked straight into the first team squad. It's absolutely phenomenal. So bringing in 8 players is great. And in fact, is more than great. But what about the deadwood? And this is something that we have to get better at. And I don't think we can blame Andrea Berta for not bringing in a lot of money this summer because look at the job he had to do. Have you ever heard of the term, you can't polish a turd, you have to roll it in glitter? That's basically what he did. To get any money out of these players was quite unbelievable, to be fair. I can't lie and say that I was shocked or surprised that we didn't get much for any of these players. Nun Tavares was already agreeing to go to Lazio. Nun Tavares is a half-decent left-sided player. I don't think he can defend. I don't think he's a left back, but he's definitely a left winger. He went to Lazio. Age 25, probably has some potential, and is seen more as a left wing back or a left winger, as far as I'm concerned. But they certainly didn't have a place in Mikel Arteta's side. Then we can talk about a player we've probably all forgotten about next in Marquinhos. 22 years old, went to Cruzeiro for around about 3 million euros. And to be fair, he was one that Edu tried, and it never really worked out for him. Scored a Europa League goal, cried his eyes out. That's all he'll be remembered for. I wish him all the best of luck. He's still 22 and got some potential to grow and try and revive his career over in Brazil. Then we come to Jakub Kiwior, a player who actually featured quite a lot for Mikel Arteta and one that he could rely upon when injuries were there. I actually thought he was excellent last season against PSG and Real Madrid and outshone Saliba in certain games. I don't mind this sale. However, I really felt like we could get more money for him. I appreciate and understand that it's a small loan fee and then it goes up to around about 30 million euros in total. But I really feel like we could get more. If Jarell Quansah is going to Leverkusen for 35 M's, Kiwior should have probably gone for more. 25 years old, Polish international, proven himself as a good squad player, probably wants first team football, no doubt. However, I still feel like he can do a good job and we should have got more money. However, Porto have got himself a good deal. He's on loan with an obligation, and that will rise to around about 30 million euros. So fair play to Berta for that one. Then we come to Sambi Lokonga, a player that people have forgotten was still at Arsenal. 25 years old. He's gone to Hamburg for a minimal fee, and that was a player that was just never really going to work out at Arsenal. At the time when we signed him, he was being touted to be the next Yaya Toure by Thierry Henry and Vincent Kompany. It was never anywhere near that level when I saw him early on. And for me, I hope he does well at Hamburg. Good luck to him. But I'm glad he's gone. He was 100% deadwood. Thomas Partey, he went to Villarreal on a free transfer. They decided not to extend his contract, and we wish him well over in Villarreal. Kieran Tierney, a free transfer to Celtic. I hope he can revive his career, considering he's only just turned 28. He's not an old player, and hopefully he is welcome back with open arms. Kieran Tierney is a player that I really respected and liked in terms of his professionalism and winning mentality. So I hope he goes and does well back at Celtic. Jorginho went to Brazil, age 33, back to Flamengo, and I hope that he revives what's left of his career. Fabi Vieira is the next one that went on loan to Hamburg to go and join Sambi Lokonga, a 25-year-old who's never really suited this league. I just think he's too lightweight, and Andrea Berta tried to get rid of him, but really no one's convinced yet. So a loan is the best that we could hope for. And the one that surprised me last minute was Zinchenko to Forest. 28 years old, needs a club, needs first team football. And of course, Edu's probably had a chat there and said, let's bring Zinchenko in, can be versatile, play in a few positions. And I just don't think he's ever been a left back. Probably technically gifted in midfield as an inverted left back, maybe, but just defensively not good enough for me. Then we go to Reece Nelson, 25 years old, left wing, Brentford, loan. Hope he does well. Hope they buy him. A lot of money, 100 grand a week. I think that's been the stumbling block, like it kind of was with Eddie and some of the others we've got rid of. But for me, Reece could have a really good season at Brentford, and I hope that he does. And then it's Cole Hine. Cole Hine's a goalkeeper that we've not really utilised into this first team. He's always been third choice or below. 23 years old, Estonian international, Werder Bremen on loan. I hope he does well. Tomiyasu, we all know about what happened there. I don't even know that he's got a club at the moment. The injuries have absolutely destroyed what has been a very short Arsenal career for him in the end. And he's never really been able to be a key figure. Very good player. I'm just not sure that he's ever been able to take us to that next level. So Tomiyasu at the moment without a club and was released as well. So Andrea Berta was able to then sign 8 players, remove 8 or 9 players that were needed to be kind of seen as deadwood and move on from the club, take their wages away from us, even if it's on loan. And then what he's done on top of that is renew contracts. Now, the first 2 that everybody looked at were our 2 youngsters. Miles Lewis-Skelly. He's a player that absolutely shone against teams like Real Madrid. He played against PSG in a Champions League semi-final at 18 years old, got called up to his international side, scored on his debut for England at left back, and is now seen as one of the favourites to take the left back position. Miles Lewis-Skelly had to sign a new deal. He's a massive Arsenal fan and he's happy at the club. And Andrea Berta was able to do that. And then we go alongside to another youngster in Ethan Nwaneri. There were slight rumours, loose rumours, suggesting that Man City, Man United and Chelsea were all interested in the future of Ethan Nwaneri. I'm really pleased that he's decided to stay. And I think Andrea Berta is a big part and reason to that, alongside Mikel Arteta. I think they've convinced him that he can be a part of this squad. And I'd like to see him more, but I think it's great business to get Ethan signed up. Then we come alongside to some of the key figures that we're all looking at right now thinking, please stay. The first one was Gabriel. There was a lot of talk about him potentially looking at Saudi. I'm so glad he stayed. He is so important to what we do moving forward. And that's a real good bit of business to get him signed down to a long contract. And then, of course, you're looking now at the 2 players that we all want to see signed. And finally, one of them has William Saliba. So pleased this guy signed. I hear him he's on 250 plus. Fine. One of our best players, one of our best performers, one of our most important players, one of our best players. And it keeps Real Madrid away from him for now. That was so important that he signed. And then we come to rumours of Bukayo Saka. £300,000 a week is being touted. Fair play. Havertz is on 290. Jesus is on 265. I'm absolutely fine if Saka is the highest paid player at the club because he's our best player. He's the one in that attacking position you can rely on. He's a threat against any opponent. Saka has to sign, and I hope that he does soon. And then you come to the rumours of David Raya. He looks to be given an improved contract, and he deserves it. Everybody kind of raised their eyebrows and shrugged their shoulders when we signed him and Aaron Ramsdale was kind of sold. Everybody was questioning it. But it was the right decision for Mikel Arteta. And he's been very important. He has definitely saved us points, even this season. So David Raya has to sign. And then we come to Jurrien Timber. My player of the season just gone. And so far, my player of the season for Arsenal this season in the first 7 or 8 games. He has been absolutely outstanding. Consistent, a machine. What would he have been like if he didn't have an ACL? This is a player I really rate. And he's only on 90 grand a week. He needs to be put on 150 to 180 like everyone else is because he's one of the best that we've got. So important. And I hope that he signs a new deal. So this is Andrea Berta signing players, extending their contracts, keeping them happy, removing the dead wood and signing players. And then, as I've said, being linked to the Yildiz over at Juventus for left wing, linked with Semenyo from Bournemouth as a potential left winger. Looking at Julian Alvarez the other day, I see loosely linked with Arsenal, potentially as cover for Gyökeres or even a start. Havertz and Jesus, what's their futures looking like? I feel confident now with Andrea Berta in charge that I didn't feel previously with Edu or Hus Fahmy and even Gazidis or Raul Sanlehi. Under Emery's regime, it didn't look quite like this. And there's been question marks under Mikel Arteta's reign in terms of the job that Edu has done, in terms of the job that Vinay Venkatesham has done. They're now at Forest and Tottenham. It's all about what happens with Andrea Berta. And I think we'll see something different in the coming years now. Josh Kroenke looks to have been handed this football club by Silent Stan, his dad. And Josh, in the last few months, has proven that maybe he does actually care a little bit. There are rumours of expanding the stadium and refurbishing it. There are rumours that there's a little bit more pressure put on the manager. There are rumours that Andrea Berta has been brought in to run things behind the scene and have more of a powerful voice. And that has to be good things for Arsenal Football Club. Andrea Berta, he's been cooking. And they're the reasons why I believe right now he's one of the best in the business. Make sure you do me a favor, people. Make sure you hit like. Make sure you hit subscribe. We're getting close to 60K. So hit that subscribe button and we'll see you on the next one. Take care, people.